Religion has played an important role in human society for hundreds of thousands of years. A multitude of systems and beliefs have come, gone, and evolved during that time. Ultimately, each represents an attempt to understand and interpret the world by people at a specific point in time. Today we are left with four distinct viewpoints: the Western monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam and their derivatives, the archaic religions, the Indic religions of Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, and Jainism, and the ethno-shamanic religions, Taoism, Shinto, Voodoo, Native American religions, and pagan revivalism. The new religions, New Age, Neo-paganism, Spiritualism, and Manifestation religion, and the Enlightenment scientific philosophies, which range from deism to atheism, perhaps including Neo-Confucianism as an Eastern contribution. The majority of religions make the claim that they were founded by people who received some form of divine revelation, whether that came through dreams and visions or through a divinely handed down book. Other religions, such as Buddhism and Taoism, are based around philosophical claims, though even these sometimes claim their founders possessed supernatural knowledge received from other beings. It is here that the definition of a prophet is found, one who claims to be the recipient of special spiritual knowledge from an otherworldly being. Let me explain briefly why this is relevant. Today we face a great number of challenges in the world, many of which are brought about by our global communication networks that are instantaneous and democratized. This means that the average person has the potential to amplify their voice far beyond what they could have in the past, but the double-edged nature of this technology means that any idea can be amplified with ease, including disinformation and propaganda. Thus, the information age has produced an extensive focus on information warfare, one which an alliance of authoritarian countries has taken full advantage of in its struggle for world domination.
Russia is an Orthodox Christian country with traditional social values, and for that reason it must be destroyed, no matter what the cost to us. So this is not a conventional war. This is a jihad. Jamie Raskin said that out loud, but many in Washington agree with him. In both parties, they would like to see World War trans immediately.
Забираем мы же, и технику забираем, и уничтожаем, и оружие забираем, и их оружием их уничтожаем, и будем уничтожать. Я вам даю слово, мы будем нападать на них каждый день, и каждый день будем уничтожать их. Я вам даю слово, да он, будут у нас показатели, да он, такие, что и мало не покажется, да он. Мы этих шайтанов, да он, не будем брать в плен, да он, будем сжигать их, да он. Не остановимся нигде, да он, наша территория, да он, не Запорожье, там, не Херсон, наша территория, Одесса, Киев, Харьков, все, да он.
Для нас все это неприемлемо. У нас другое, свое будущее. Повторю, диктатура западных элит направлена против всех обществ, в том числе и народов самих западных стран. Это вызов всем. Такое полное отрицание человека, ниспровержение веры и традиционных ценностей, подавление свободы приобретает черты религии наоборот, откровенного сатанизма. В Нагорной проповеди Иисус Христос, обличая лжепророков, говорит: «По плодам их узнаете их». И эти ядовитые плоды уже очевидны людям. Не только в нашей стране, во всех странах, в том числе для многих людей и в самом Западе. Мир вступил в период революционных трансформаций. Они носят фундаментальный характер. Формируются новые центры развития. Они представляют большинство мирового сообщества и готовы не только заявлять о своих интересах, но и защищать их. И в многополярности видят возможность укрепить свой суверенитет, а значит обрести истинную свободу, историческую перспективу, свое право на самостоятельное, творческое, самобытное развитие, на гармоничный процесс. Во всем мире, в том числе и в Европе и Соединенных Штатах, как я уже сказал, у нас много единомышленников. И мы чувствуем, мы видим их поддержку. Внутри самых разных стран и обществ уже развивается по своему характеру освободительное, антиколониальное движение против однополярной гегемонии. Его субъектность только будет нарастать. Именно эта сила будет определять будущую геополитическую реальность. Уважаемые друзья, сегодня мы боремся за справедливый и свободный путь, прежде всего для нас самих, для России, за то, чтобы диктат, деспотизм навсегда остались в прошлом. Убежден, страны и народы понимают, что политика, построенная на исключительности кого бы то ни было, на подавлении других культур и народов, по сути своей преступна, что мы должны перевернуть эту позорную страницу. Начавшийся слом западной гегемонии необратим. И вновь повторю, как прежде, уже не будет.
For the purposes of this discussion, I will be focusing on the claims used to bolster the quasi-religious form of propaganda inherent in three interlinked movements: extremist Islam, political conspiracism, and the reactionary right. In the middle of the 20th century, the Islamic world reversed its course towards the sort of secularization that it had been undergoing since the late period of the Ottoman Empire, typified by figures like Ataturk. The successful conclusion of that project would have resulted in the Middle East undergoing a similar process that Christianity in the West underwent. The Middle East would have remained culturally influenced by some Islamic ideas and its Islamic history, while minimizing the political impact of the religion and shutting out extremists entirely. Instead, numerous aristocratic elites and military dictators saw the usefulness that the more extreme forms of Islam could offer to them. In particular, embracing extreme Islam sets the practitioner against all non-Muslims by default, with the end result being ever more obsessions with what is regarded as pure Islam, stricter laws, lessening tolerance of others, and oppression of women. Historically, the project of extreme Islam has always ended in disaster, which is why most of the major Islamic reformers intentionally diminished the influence of the more extreme versions of the religion. It must be said that one does no favors for the people of the Middle East by promoting any sort of extremist religion. Nor should one who supports these groups have the delusion that they are promoting a natural expression of any Middle Eastern people. Rather, the extremist groups promote authoritarian theocracies that have a regressive impact on society, psychologically warping the people. In recent years, an alliance has emerged between the far left and Islamic extremism. This started around the time of the Bush presidency and has only grown more prominent, which can be seen with the recent juvenile outbursts against Jews taking place across the Western world, largely promoted by students and professors at universities. This is because there is, in the minds of these left reactionaries, no distinction made between the different forms of Islam. Thus, the most extreme forms of Islam are granted the same protected status as Muslims who are democratic secularists. And as the reactionary left aligns more with political Islam, it embraces its language.
October 7th, our resistance stormed illegal settlements and paraglided across colonial borders. Inspires more than 5,000 rockets.
Colonial state, of normalcy in the midst of genocide. Of normalcy under empire. This is what we are here to do today, and I am not afraid to say it. So my friends, sing it with me. There is only one solution. There is only one solution. Intifada revolution. Intifada revolution. There is only one solution. There is only one solution. Intifada revolution. Intifada revolution. Listen to Gaza.
of babies and rapings. Israel murdered their own people on October 7th.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media and that we should be doing everything possible to combat.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
As an Arab, asking with this context to condemn Hamas is very anti-Arab racist.
The notion that this was a massacre of Jews is a fabricated narrative. Many of those killed on October 7th,
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
including children, were killed by the IDF. An amendment condemning Hamas is bald propaganda meant to...
Thank you. Your time is up.
To hear them complain about Hamas violence is like listening to a wife beater complain when his wife finally stands up and fights back.
Question. Did anyone else notice that those who oppose this resolution are old white supremacists?
There's been a lot of atrocity propaganda ranging from claims of beheaded babies to mass.
Political conspiracism refers to the use of conspiracy theories as weaponized forces to cause dissent and disillusionment in the countries of political opponents. In particular, the current most potent form of conspiracism is the idea that a certain collective of elites represents an explicitly evil force, essentially a satanic collective. In the modern time, this is most blatantly seen in the conspiracy theories designed to present the Western world and its leaders as evil. These theories have become popularized amongst both Western right and left-wing extremists, which emerge in different forms but with the same anti-Western end. Additionally, this theory has become popular amongst the Islamic countries and Muslim expatriates in the West. We see in the language of conspiracism embraced by Putin's Russia, which has called the West explicitly satanic, by the Iranian Islamic Republic, which has called the West the Great Satan, and previously by dictators such as Saddam Hussein. Conspiracism is most prominently targeted at three groups: the West, in particular the English and Americans, against Jews and Israel, and against India and Hindus. Attempting to turn the global population against these three broad groups is the primary purpose of conspiracism. Conspiracism is, in my opinion, the primary ideological weapon and mind vehicle of the anti-Western countercultural movement of this day. And this brings us to the reactionary right. The reactionary right emerged as a cultural reaction to the secular liberalism of the centrists and the progressivism of the left. The movement is split 50-50 between hardcore Christians and those who adopt the language of Christendom to justify a sort of Western white racialism. Most prominently, the identitarians of Europe and the MAGA movement of the US can be cited here. In recent years, this movement has become increasingly tied into conspiracism as a justification for its existence, adopting talking points that used to be found only amongst very niche far-right groups on the internet. We've also seen some ideological leaders of the far left and far right attempting to align against the center, and they have been increasingly making common cause in their anti-Western propositions. So for example, we have the recent Rage Against the War Machine rally in Washington, which saw left and right come together in order to allegedly go against the Ukraine-Russian war, but in reality they're just acting in the interests of Russia against Ukraine. Many of the leaders of these forces are, of course, entirely aware that their rhetoric has a tenuous grasp on reality, a form of political showmanship. Many don't actually believe in the religious ideas they proclaim at all, just cloaking themselves in the language for political credibility. But the point is that they use culturally entrenched absolutist ideas placed into society by Christianity and Islam in order to manipulate the world and justify their project for imperial domination. This means that whether the proclaimer is a preacher, an imam, a radical leftist student, a MAGA supporter, a nationalist, or any other variant of propagandizing demagogue, the intended effect and end is the same, no matter how the message might change. To demonstrate how these three groups have come together, consider the article from Alexander Dugin on the site called Arctos, entitled, "The West is Not Judeo-Christian." Western conservatives once again invoke the defense of a Judeo-Christian civilization in the face of Muslims. The radical ideology of Hamas gives them a convenient pretext. A society deeply rooted in atheism, materialism, and the legalization of various perversions, having long abandoned theology and traditional values, can neither be considered Christian nor Jewish. If such a Western stance, as we observe now, supports Israel, then something has gone seriously amiss. For if the devil's civilization is on your side, you have taken a misstep. There's no such thing as a Judeo-Christian world. It is pure nonsense. In contrast, the Islamic world exists, and its traditions remain strong. The dynamic is not Judeo-Christian versus Muslims. It is Muslims opposing a satanic culture, opposing the Antichrist. Biden's idea to merge the themes of supporting Ukraine with that of Israel underlines this. The West always sides with those who obey its hegemony. Muslims were not enemies of Ukraine or allies of Russia, except the eschatologically awakened Iran and Syria. But now they may be. Russia represents a pole in a multipolar world. Islam represents a pole in a multipolar world. Both poles stand against the West's desperate attempts to maintain, even if it risks a world war, unipolarity, and global dominance. The Palestinian conflict with Israel was not a civilizational front line, but now it is. The scale of this confrontation is expanding. The situation grows increasingly ominous. Billions globally are convinced that the collective West and its allies represent the utmost evil, the civilization of the Antichrist. Perhaps only Trump's return to US leadership or the onset of a full-blown civil war there can save the world from apocalypse, or at least delay it. Democrats, globalists, and neoconservatives are leading humanity straight into the abyss, which, strictly speaking, is the demonic mandate. And at the core, we have this important realization. The psychological impact of religion leaves an impression long after the original reason for an idea has fallen out of favor. It's why I often joke that the best Christians in the modern day are left reactionaries, since their psychological profiles are most similar to the early Christians during the fall of Rome, their methods being little different than those of demagogues like Cyril of Alexandria. At the core of all three of these movements are the ideas and ideology inherent to the religions of Christianity and Islam, their impact on society now having become largely an excuse for the abuse of power. Rationally dismissing the claims of these religions will not end their psychological impact, nor will that act alone bring an end to the idea of us versus everyone else and the obsession with finding a god and a devil in everything. However, ripping apart the foundations of these ideas, the foundations of religious absolutism, is the start of the end.